Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar on how to improve mental well-being in the workplace. Those of you that are joining me live, you are very welcome, and also those of you that will be watching the recording at a time that suits you, you're also welcome. Today I see from the registrations that we have some new people joining us that haven't attended my monthly webinars before. So I extend a very warm welcome to you. Those of you that are returning and have become real regulars, you know the drill. So thank you for joining me again. Those of you that are joining me live, what I would love, if we could, before we got started, if you could use the chat box. Most of you may not be familiar with Crowdcast, the platform that I'm using. Just down here on the bottom right, you'll see the chat box. I'd appreciate it if you could introduce yourself, who you are, if you would, maybe what you do, where you are, and maybe I'd also really love to know why you're here today. In terms of why I'm here today, I am here today because this is Mental Health Awareness Week, and mental well-being is something I am very passionate about. This year's theme is loneliness. So the tagline for this week is "Together we can tackle loneliness." And so today I want to talk about well-being, particularly the areas that I would focus on this afternoon. We'll be looking at what mental health is and the causes of poor mental health at work. Also then how to have meaningful conversations with your team about their mental well-being. So that's why I'm here today. I'd love it if you could introduce yourselves. Please don't be shy. It would be good if you could introduce yourself and even let me know why you're here. Always great to know why you're here so that I can focus my attention on some of that in the 60 minutes that we will be together. So please don't be shy. Use the chat box, and that will help me to understand what might be going on for you. Some of you may simply be curious. Some of you may be looking for ideas and tools for your team. Please tell me what that is. While I give you some time to include some of those details in the chat box, I will continue. So I want to start by sharing some figures about mental well-being, mental health. I said this year's theme of the Mental Health Awareness Week is loneliness. And the figures that I'm sharing today are for Northern Ireland because I've looked at the registrations, and I know this webinar, most of you are from Northern Ireland, where I am based and where I am providing this webinar from. Those of you that join me regularly, there's many people that aren't from Northern Ireland, but this will give you a flavour for some of the issues that we're experiencing here. Sharon, thank you for being brave. You're the first one. So Sharon, it's lovely that you're joining me. So you're interested, you've recently put some of your employees through the mental health first aid training. You've attended these webinars before. Thank you for the compliment. And I hope this will be as good as the others. Lorraine, Mental Health Foundation, and not so sunny Ballymena, here today to gain awareness, specifically as you manage a small team, and this is your first time joining me, so you are very welcome. Finance and Admin Manager at Supporting Communities NI. I probably met you, I think I did meet you earlier in the week. So lovely that you're joining me again. Thank you. Great. I know there are a few more of you joining me live, so please don't be shy. You're going to find as we go through this session that Shyness is something that shows up for us. We respond to that in a particular way. So today I'd like you to open up and really experience this webinar by getting involved. Anne-Marie, lovely that you're joining me. Anne-Marie is a family support team leader with the ARC Healthy Living Centre in Irvinstown, and you want to become more aware to ensure and improve the mental well-being within the team. Royan recently become qualified as one of your mental health first aiders. Looking forward to this webinar. Great. So let's get started. All of you are here most likely because you do know that mental well-being is a huge problem globally. If we look at these figures in terms of Northern Ireland, more than a quarter of adults in Northern Ireland have felt lonely some or all of the time over the previous month. This is research, facts that have come from research that the Mental Health Foundation have done in Northern Ireland. 1/3 of adults in Northern Ireland feel ashamed about being lonely. Almost half of adults in Northern Ireland say they would never admit to feeling lonely. And more than 1/3 of adults in Northern Ireland said feelings of loneliness have made them feel worried or anxious. And really, as I read those figures, my heart sinks. It makes me sad that, for example, people feel ashamed to say that they might be feeling lonely. One of the things that you're going to find from today is, I've said, it is about opening up. We need people to be talking about how they're feeling, and I'm going to help you to understand how you might be able to do that within your teams. So these statistics that I'm sharing with you are, you may say, actually not hard to believe, considering what we have been through in the last 2 years, but frightening nonetheless. These other mental health facts, taken from a variety of different sources. If I'm starting over in the top left and looking at stress, depression, or anxiety accounted for 50% of all work-related ill health cases in 2020-21. So if you're looking at mental health from a work perspective, which is why we're here today, then stress, depression, and anxiety are having a huge impact on your organization and on your team. And we will be talking later about the impact that will be having on the team, what we might see happening. Mental ill health is the #1 cause of long-term sickness absence, and that comes from the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. In Northern Ireland, unfortunately, we have 25% higher prevalence of mental health problems than in England. Unfortunately, in terms of the Department of Health budget, it's certainly no bigger than in England. One of the recent figures that I found in the mental health strategy for Northern Ireland, which again is frightening for me, is 39%, so almost 40% of the population in Northern Ireland has reported experiencing a traumatic event relating to the Troubles. In Northern Ireland, we have higher rates of PTSD than anywhere else in the world. So, if you think about it, again, one of the posts that I posted on social media today is relating to that. Imagine you're within let's say a small team of 30 people. What that means is, let's say, perhaps 12 people within that team might be experiencing a traumatic event relating to the Troubles. So in every organization, there are mental health issues around. There is somebody in your organization that is struggling. And if you're not aware of it, then what you need to be aware is that people aren't talking about it, but it is there. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to introduce you to some tools to help you get people to talk about these things. We know that the statistics also say that 1 in 4 will experience a mental health problem each year. So, again, if we look at your organization and we look at, 8 people, there's likely to be 2 people perhaps experiencing some kind of mental health problem. In Northern Ireland, people with severe and enduring mental health have a reduced life expectancy of 15 to 20 years because of poor physical health. So mental health and physical health, very strongly related. And so as organizations, as teams, we need to be thinking about what we can do. We cannot leave it to the health service, because I suppose my experience is sometimes at that point it's too late. There's lots organizations can do in terms of preventative measures, but there's lots that you can do to support people who are experiencing mental health problems. So let's look at, what does a healthy workplace look like? This is a definition that comes from the World Health Organization. So a healthy workplace is one where employees and managers work together to protect and promote their health, safety, well-being, and the sustainability of the business. Keyword in there, I think, is working together to protect and promote. Then we've got health, safety, well-being, and sustainability of the business. If we also look at then, what's the definition? What is mental health? So the definition of mental health, again, coming from the World Health Organization, is where an individual realizes their own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. So just start thinking today for yourself. How able are you to realize your own potential? How able are you to cope with the normal stresses of life? And how able are you to work productively and fruitfully and make a contribution to your community? Let's say we looked at this on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being not so good and 10 being excellent. Where do you think you might sit on that scale? I'm not asking you to share that. I'm just asking you to notice today how your mental health is. Is your mental health working for you? Or are you finding that there may be some problems that you might be having? What we want to do today is to look at what might be the causes of poor mental health at work. Well, we have a long list here of, I think many people might say that their mental health is stress, the pressures and the strain can come at the moment from their workload. Certainly, I find from an anecdotal point of view, I hear people talking to me about their workload, not being able to complete their workload within their normal working hours, therefore working extended hours. Extended hours then meaning that, people are working longer in the day, and that has an impact again, not only on mental health, but productivity. So therefore we can find ourselves sometimes in a very vicious cycle. Relationships at work, whether that's our work colleagues or our line manager, the working hours can certainly sometimes put a strain if they don't work with how you work as an individual. So flexibility is one of those things that we have found over the last 2 years that organizations have really embraced. The demands of the job. What are the demands of the job? Do individuals have the capability and the capacity to fulfill that role? Do individuals feel that they have a work-life balance? And there are many people out there at the moment that don't feel they have a work-life balance. And the consequences of that for those individuals is they perhaps suffer in silence, perhaps they complain to their line manager, or they look for another job. So control, what element of control do I have over the work that I do, my responsibilities, the hours of work even as well? And for some organisations, the mental ill health can come also from organisational change. So there's been huge organisational change over the last 2 years. Organisations have restructured, they have introduced new technologies. These can all put a strain on individuals. And if we go back to thinking about what the definition of mental health is, where individuals can cope with the normal stresses of life. If we add those together and there are 1, 2, or 3 collective causes, then individuals may find that their ability to cope with those normal stresses reduces. And there can also be individual factors, that is, factors outside of work. So it could be about their own self-confidence. It could be about their own resilience levels, or it could be that they have other health conditions which may be contributing to their mental ill health at work. In addition to what I've just discussed, what I thought I would share with you is we know that stress is one of the top 4 causes of absence at work. So if we look at here, the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development's Health and Wellbeing Survey for 2021 and 2022, we can see some of the differences here in terms of what is causing the stress. So we can see what has remained steady over the years, these 2 years and previously, is the workload and the volume of work for individuals is the top cause of stress at work. Interestingly, the next factor for 2021 is management style. It's 3 for 2022, but it is still in the top 3. And those of you that have joined me before may have seen this quote that I've used from Gallup. The chairman and CEO of Gallup says that he believes that your manager has more impact on your health than your doctor. Those of you that are joining me from a management position today, I'd really urge you to think about not only yourself, but as a management team, what impact are we having? I think we would all hope that we are having a positive impact on people's well-being at work. And we'd be horrified to think that we might be having a negative impact on their well-being, because none of us go out and intend to do any of this. But today you're going to have the opportunity to be thinking about what impact might my behaviour be having on the team? If I am a leader, how am I conducting myself? How am I interacting with the team? And is that helping or hindering their well-being? So in 2022, we'll see that the second cause was the non-work factors, relationship and family issues, things that are happening outside of work. And also we can see the fourth for 2022 was non-work factors such as personal illness or health issues. One of the things from this survey also, and you could be thinking about your organisations, is what struck me was that in the health and wellbeing survey, I think almost every organisation is supporting at least an individual who has long COVID. So long COVID will have an impact on physical health, but over a period of time, that's having an impact on the mental well-being of that individual. So we really need to be thinking about our environment, how we work collectively together, and the impact that that might be having on the team. So what I have done now is I've shared what mental health is. I've shared the causes of poor mental health. Now what I want to do is share with you how to have meaningful conversations with your team about their mental well-being. And to do that, what I want to do is to introduce you to, if some of you joining will have heard me talk about this before. So to really talk about mental health at work, one of the things that we all need to improve our mental well-being is we need to develop something called psychological flexibility. And that is the ability for an individual to take action or behave in a way that brings them satisfaction, even in the presence of uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, and experiences. And what we do know from research is supporting and promoting psychological flexibility. We know that psychological flexibility is the cornerstone of psychological health and well-being. So even this definition, for some of you that are joining me for the first time, it's about, well, what does that really mean and how do we achieve that? And that's exactly what I'm going to talk to you about now. So what I do is I work with teams to help teams develop psychological flexibility. I work with individuals to help individuals develop that psychological flexibility through coaching, but I also do that through group workshops or webinars. And so how we do that is I use Dr. Kevin Polk's ACT Matrix. This is a globally recognized tool. And I know some of you joining have seen this before. So I'm going to walk us through this, because by walking you through this today, you will be more psychologically flexible at the end of using this ACT Matrix than you were when we started. And you can share this with your team to help them become more psychologically flexible, therefore improving their health and well-being. So at the top of the matrix, we've got 5 senses experience. That's what goes on in the external world. So what I see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. When I see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, that flows through me, and I then can experience internal experiences in the internal world. So you are hearing me today, you're seeing my slides, and you are also, while it is small, you can see me also. What I'm saying to you and what you're seeing will trigger thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And so for every external experience, there is an internal consequence. And when we experience in the internal world, that often creates a consequence in the external world. And on the left side here, we have away. In fact, I'm just going to change that, because that really should be relief. We used to talk about away and towards. Now, when we're using this matrix, we talk about relief and satisfaction. So for some reason, I seem to have something that was reflecting older thinking. So just changing that now for you. Okay, when we use the ACT matrix, we always start in the bottom right of the matrix by looking at here, who are the important people to you. So here's where we get interactive. I was going to say there's no way around this, but there is, because you can choose not to get involved. But it's much better in terms of using the ACT matrix if I can demonstrate by you getting involved, because this is going to help you to be psychologically flexible. So down here in the bottom right, so in the internal world, what brings me satisfaction? By asking, who are the important people in your life? So I'll start by saying, you that are attending, so the attendees today are important to me. Who are the important people to you? Who is important in your life? What might you say? Who are the important people? I would also say my husband is important to me. Oh, Roisin, thank you. I didn't realise you joined us. So, Roisin, thank you for joining us. Family, children, friends, colleagues. Brilliant. Excellent. So, even if we're thinking about this theme of loneliness in terms of Mental Health Awareness Week, really noticing helplines, Roisin. Okay, so helplines. Who are the important people to me? Helps to think about here who they might be. And also then, once we have looked at who might be important to us, I'm over then in the bottom left of this matrix by asking the question, what unwanted stuff shows up for you that you would prefer not to experience? So I'll start while you're thinking and typing. So this is Mental Health Awareness Week and the theme is loneliness. So an unwanted feeling might be lonely. If we look at again some of the other, anxious, so anxiety might show up, feeling isolated might be showing up. What else might be showing up? Feeling sad is something that might be unwanted. Yeah, great. Worry, rushing, fear. None of us want to experience those emotions. What else might be showing up for you today that is unwanted? Are you brave enough? If we think about some of the statistics I shared, so feeling ashamed, even of feeling lonely. Sometimes we might be feeling guilty and despair in terms of despairing about the situation, feeling guilty that you haven't done everything that you plan to do today on your to-do list, for example. And we also may be feeling frustrated with other people. We may be feeling frustrated with ourselves. So there is unwanted stuff showing up inside. Thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, and urges are internal experiences that we want to get relief from. And when we want to get relief from them, let's just have a look at when you experience loneliness, anxiety, isolation, sadness, worry, fear, ashamed, guilty, despair, or feeling frustrated. What might you do to get rid of that unwanted stuff? So it could be in terms of some of those feelings, we might withdraw from those around. Roisin might exercise. Thank you, Roisin. Okay, and also overeat. Oh, sorry, Rowan was exercise. Roisin is, overeat. What else might we do? We might also, when we're feeling this way, we might drink alcohol, we think, to lift our spirits. We might overthink. Drink alcohol, and we might also, people who feel that way might also take drugs, and those could be prescription drugs. So we might have, I might see you having trouble sleeping, so you might be awake at night. What else might I see or hear you doing to get rid of guilt, despair, frustration, fear? So guilt, I might apologize. Apologize is getting rid of that feeling. Feel free to use the chat box and let me know. Okay, so cut out of relationships, brilliant. So what we're trying to do here is to show cut off relationships, brilliant. So what we're saying here is these are the things that we do when we are feeling those feelings. So cut off relationships. We might stop contacting people. Like, tell me, if you withdraw, you overeat, you exercise, you drink alcohol or take drugs, you overthink, you're lying in bed awake at night, you're apologizing for feeling guilty, and you cut off in relationships, feeling worthless. Okay, so how might you feel after all of that? So feeling worthless, and fail at tasks or feel like a failure. Okay, so worthless and feeling a failure. Now, what I want you to realize here is, again, I talked about earlier the consequences. So if I drink alcohol, I now maybe feel guilty. I've overeaten and I'm now frustrated with myself. I'm feeling worthless. I'm feeling that, I can't complete tasks. I'm failing at tasks. So actually there's another word now that I'll add in there. So Rowan has made me think of a lack of confidence. So we can see here why our mental health can be so fragile, because we also are having an impact on that as individuals. Because as humans, unfortunately, and some of you will have heard me say this before, we have been trained to think of emotions as positive or negative. At school, we talk about good or bad. We've been trained from a very early age. And what we see in the bottom left of this matrix, these are words that people will associate with being negative, being wrong. And really having meaningful conversations with your team and the understanding is these are a normal range of healthy emotions for humans. If you're not experiencing those emotions, then you have a problem with your brain. You have brain damage, because our emotional aspects come from our brain, come from a part of our brain. So by wanting not to experience these emotions, we are wishing for something that we don't want to wish for, and that is to have brain damage. The sign of a healthy mind is to create psychological suffering, because your mind is doing the job that it's required to do. So in terms of having meaningful conversations, I'd love it if we could work together to change that narrative. We no longer talk about the positive or negative emotions, or good or bad. When we use the ACT matrix, we talk about the unwanted emotions. The Americans will call this bottom left the yucky stuff that shows up inside. Here, I think we probably prefer to call them maybe unwanted. Feel free to use whatever works for you. Because the question with the ACT matrix is, does this work for you? So does feeling lonely and anxious and isolated and sad and worried and ashamed and guilty, does this work for you? Does withdrawing and overeating and drinking alcohol or drugs or overthinking, for example, do they work for you? And if we then come over to the right side of this matrix, the question here is, what could you do in your approach to those people that are important to you? What could you do that would bring you satisfaction in your approach to those relationships? So what could you do to bring satisfaction in your relationship with your partner, your family, your children, your friends, your colleagues? What could you do? Also, we didn't say it then, it often comes last, but I'm also going to put myself being yourself. So you as an individual, you are also important. So, okay, so we've got, thank you, talk openly. Talk openly, make time for them. What else could you do that would bring you satisfaction in your approach to those relationships? It could be colleagues. You might send them a text or check in on Teams. And communication. So you might give them a call. You might, you could, for yourself, you could exercise to improve your mental well-being. So again, we can see that exercise is both on the left and the right, because the question is this working for you? Or are you doing the activity to get relief from, or is it bringing you satisfaction? Remind them of the helplines and external support. So remind of helplines and external support. Okay, so again here, just what we want to do is to think about here, bottom right is these are the people that are important to me. These are the things that will bring me satisfaction. And so these are the people that are important. Here's what I need to do to bring satisfaction. And so we could spend some time over on the right side of this matrix. What I'd like you to do is, even for yourself and improving your own mental health, is to think about today, where do I spend my time? If you looked at this matrix for you, you may have a blank sheet of paper in front of you and you may be trying to do this now yourself. Are you spending time trying to get relief from the unwanted stuff? Are you thinking about what brings you satisfaction? The more time we spend over on the left side of this matrix, the less time we can spend on the right. Therefore, that will be having an impact on our mental well-being. Now, this bit in the middle of this matrix is noticing. It's you noticing. So the ACT matrix is a me matrix. It's about me, you as an individual, any individual. It's about noticing your life and how you're living it. So when we use this matrix, we work from a respectful point of view. So I would ask you today, do you think in the next week or so, you would have the opportunity to practice this ACT matrix by simply noticing who the people are that are important, that bring you satisfaction, what unwanted stuff is showing up for you that you want relief from, noticing what you do to get relief from that unwanted stuff, and noticing what you could do that would bring you satisfaction in your life and those relationships in terms of those important people. Do you think you'd have an opportunity in the next week or so to notice those 4 things? And if you do, then really that will make you more psychologically flexible. I said research shows that improving psychological flexibility is the cornerstone of health and well-being. So noticing these things, in my view and my experience, is not only improving an individual's mental well-being, but also their physical well-being. So you could be showing this to your teams. You could be offering this to your teams. So now what we want to do is, this is the me matrix. Now what I want to do is I'm going to start talking about the we matrix. And the we matrix we talk about because what we're trying to do with the we matrix is develop psychological safety. So the me matrix I've just showed was developing psychological flexibility. You'll know that. I've repeated that a few times. Now what we want to do in teams is to create psychological safety. Psychological safety is a climate where people are comfortable expressing and being themselves. I'm going to make a statement which some of you may feel to be very generalised, and that is, in Northern Ireland, I find that males in particular have been trained to think that expressing emotion is not good. It's not what males do. Now, if you have, and you're in a leadership position, you have low levels of emotional expression. It's not exclusive to men, so And I'd want you to be thinking yourselves, do I feel comfortable expressing my emotions? And if you feel that you're not comfortable expressing your emotions, then what you're going to find is your team won't either, because they will find it hard to understand you. They will find it hard to understand how you're feeling because you don't express yourself, because they see kind of a blank look. They don't know when you're under pressure, which is a great thing. That's what most people will think. I don't want to share too much. So if they don't know what's going on, that's great. But therefore you will not be, your team will not express as a result. So a team with high psychological safety, and their teammates feel safe to take risks around them, and also they will feel that they won't be embarrassed or punished or humiliated for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering a new idea. So the stigma associated with mental health problems is something that we all want to crack. And to crack that, we need psychological safety. But we can't get to psychological safety without being psychologically flexible. So we need to be noticing what's showing up ourselves to be able to develop psychological safety within the team. So how do we go about doing that? So I'm using this matrix today in the context of having those meaningful conversations with your team at work. So the matrix looks much the same as it did before. And so this time, if we're using the Prosocial matrix, the we matrix, we have the 5 senses experience, internal world. Again, I'm just going to change that because we said this is relief. And we have over here satisfaction. Okay. So we would, if you were doing this with your team, and I will do it now, I'd ask permission to share this. Because when we use these tools, as I said, we come from a respectful viewpoint. So we're not forcing things on people. We're asking for permission to share. And just in terms of time and while I would wait for you to give to me that permission to share, I will start in the bottom right. So in the bottom right, if we think about here, what is our shared purpose? So if you thought about, you wanted to have meaningful conversations with your team about mental well-being, why would you be doing that? What is your shared purpose? So with the we matrix here, this is more than one person. So this could be you and a team member, one of the people that you manage, or it could be you with the entire team. So what is your shared purpose? So, well, the shared purpose could be improving mental well-being or general well-being. If we think about it, what might be important to you? When I mean you now is plural. What's important to you yourself and your team members in terms of having meaningful conversations with your team about their mental well-being? What might be important to you and to your team when you're openness and honesty? Thank you. Openness and honesty to be listened to. Okay, excellent, great. What else might you want? So I might put compassionate, to be respected, okay, 2 minds thinking on the same wavelength. So to be compassionate. Also, what might be important is teamwork, maybe in this sense. Flexibility might be important. Feeling supportive or supported might be important. Respect and valued. Okay. So even if we start with the list that we have, because really what I'm trying to do is to demonstrate this tool so that you have a broad understanding of it. Now, over here in the bottom left of the matrix, again, this now is a wee matrix. So my question here is always, what's the social unwanted stuff that shows up? So it's not just me. So when I'm together, when I'm with somebody, that can be with people virtually, what's the unwanted stuff that might be showing up? So the social unwanted stuff could be feeling awkward. What else do you, so when we're together as a team, it might be I feel stressed. It could be that I might feel worried. What else is the unwanted stuff that could be appearing in your team? Feeling awkward, feeling stressed, feeling worried, rushing, thanks, feeling, sorry, I keep saying the R, so Rowan, feeling overwhelmed. Great, feeling vulnerable. Okay, what else do you think the team might be feeling? Some people could be feeling depressed about the situation. They could be feeling burnt out. They could be feeling isolated with the hybrid working or the work from home. So they could be feeling isolated and frustrated. Great. I'm reminding you again that these are a normal range of emotions. Just to think about your sharing your feelings or how others might be feeling easily. This wee matrix is setting the context to have meaningful conversations. Simply asking people what might be showing up that is unwanted. So you're giving them the opportunity to share this with you. As I said, this could be you and one other person. It could be you and a team. So in the top right now, we might say, okay, let's think about when those things show up, when we are together in a social context, what might we see people do to get rid of that unwanted stuff when we are together? So we can see people overreact in work. Again, so there's great. So people may be feeling worthless. And so they might respond by sickness. So people aren't at work as a result of how they're feeling. What else might we see in response to the unwanted stuff? What might people do that gets relief? What might we see happening? They might make light of things. They might lack contribution at meetings. There may be fallouts, increases, in lateness, decrease in performance. We might also see mistakes being made. Remember again, and lack of team togetherness. So lack of team togetherness. What I want you to do is to remember, having looked at the psychological flexibility matrix, what we're seeing is normal. So we're seeing, here's what people are doing as a result of how they're feeling. We can understand behavior so much better when we know what's going on inside. So by using this with your team, you're creating that sense of awareness, you're creating that psychological safety by using this tool to encourage people to talk about how they are feeling. So again here, if we then move over into the top right here, this is the bit about, okay, so now if you're to have meaningful conversations with your team about their mental well-being, and if we look at the list of what's important in the bottom right of this matrix, So improved well-being and general well-being, openness and honesty, to be listened to, compassionate, to be respected, teamwork, flexibility, supported and valued. The question here is, what could we do that would bring us satisfaction towards our shared purpose and what is important? What could we do together? So what could we do that's you and your team that you're managing? It could be you and those individuals. So, we all have that sense of responsibility. So things like weekly check-ins with the team. And in the last couple of months, I had the experience of chatting to a manager, and we were chatting about psychological flexibility and emotional intelligence and emotional expression, and they were going to a one-to-one, and they asked me for advice on one thing that they could ask, and I said, simply ask the individual, how are you feeling? If we asked individuals how they are feeling and we wait for the response, in Northern Ireland, the most common response is, I'm fine, I'm grand, I'm okay. But really what I would encourage you to do is, how are you feeling today? And this manager did that, and he was astounded that he had such a meaningful conversation with this team member. An hour into the conversation, that's what they were talking about. Or not an hour into, but they were talking about it for an hour. What does that create? We all need to know that people care about us, and particularly that people care about us at work. So also, I'm just following the chat box here as well. So team building exercises. What else could we do to encourage meaningful conversations about mental well-being? So I'm going to shorten this by saying do 2 loops. So doing the ACT matrix and the Prosocial matrix with your teams. Perhaps Anne-Marie, you're still here, I hope. Anne-Marie, maybe you wouldn't mind just sharing how you're getting on with the 2 loops. Anne-Marie's using this with her team. So doing the 2 loops is having those conversations. So I'm talking weekly check-ins on a one-to-one basis here. And it's about, asking people what they need to improve their well-being. What could we do? We could ask for feedback. You could ask the team for feedback about your leadership style. What is working for the team? What might not be working? You could do the stop, start, continue activity. What should I stop doing? What should I start doing? And what should I continue doing? You want to create this environment, a psychologically safe environment, where people feel it is okay to express themselves, that they can challenge. So I think maybe here's something that's important, is to challenge. I think that's important in any organization that's going to be psychologically safe. We can train managers in terms of psychological flexibility and emotional intelligence, all of those things. Really, if we look at the predictions or the research that's come out about the future of work, well-being and emotional intelligence should be front and center in your organization. It really should be something that you're focusing on. So setting boundaries. I mentioned earlier that I'm talking to a lot of people that are working outside of their normal working hours. And I also said earlier that one of the things, okay, Roshan, your sound has gone. I'm hoping everyone else is still hearing me and it isn't me. So if you're still here and hearing me, I'd love it if you could let me know in the chat box. I'm just, can everyone hear me? Great. Okay, don't need to do that. Excellent. Sorry, Roisin, that you're having some technical difficulties. So one of the things that I was talking about, people working outside of their normal working hours. And really the idea of both of these matrix, I said, is in each of the quadrants, it's asking the question is this working for me? And when it's not working for me, then what we will find is we will find increases in labour turnover, because people are leaving us. Absence rates increase. So we really need to be thinking about what is working for us. So in the me matrix, what is working for me? In this we matrix, what is working for us? So again, if I just grab my pen here, it is, these are the things that these are the things that are important. These are the things that I do that bring me satisfaction. Oh, Anne-Marie, Maeve is here too. Maeve, brilliant, thank you. I have more people on the call than I thought when you're doubling up. Love to hear you're still hearing me. Maeve and Anne-Marie, as I said, have gone through some training in using both the ACT matrix and the Prosocial matrix, and they have been using it with their team. So if you're willing, I'd love to, if you could share just a few words that might help and encourage others joining today to maybe try this out themselves. So feel free to do that. So really thinking about here, what are those things that we need to do? So just grab my pen again here. So setting boundaries is promote well-being opportunities. What is it that people feel they need? Talking to people in the organization, in your team, about what is it they need to help improve their well-being. If we think about the causes of stress at work, we think about the causes of poor mental health at work, you as a leader have more impact on their well-being than their doctor. Listening to them, really listening to them. So when you're doing these exercises, you do need to do the 2 loops with individuals and really encouraging people to let you know the unwanted stuff that goes on. So, again, here in the middle of this matrix, what we're doing is we are noticing the difference. Noticing the difference in those things that we want to get relief from, and noticing the difference in those things that bring us satisfaction. Again, as a team, if we can spend more time over on the right side of this matrix doing things that bring us satisfaction, then on the left, those things that give us relief, then we'll have a more cohesive team, we'll have a more productive team, and we know that there is a serious cost to mental ill health. Again, we need to open up and have those conversations. Remember the statistics that I showed you. If people aren't talking to you about their mental well-being issues and problems and their health, then something is wrong. Because there is no doubt in your organizations, there are people that are suffering. There are people that are lonely. There are people that feel isolated, people feeling depressed, but they're afraid of being judged. The ACT matrix and the Prosocial matrix come from a non-judgmental and compassionate viewpoint. So just think about that. So I've been talking you through both of these matrices. You'll see just even at the bottom of the screen, there is book your 30-minute complimentary consultation. If those of you that are joining me would like to hear more, to know how we might work together, then please feel free to click that link. It will bring you through to an automated system to book an appointment with myself virtually. And just thinking about those well-being services that I provide, emotional intelligence assessment. So I use the Thomas International TQ to help leaders understand their emotions in 15 different areas. So sorry, I see Anne-Marie's just come back and Maeve. So we're beginning to use it within the team meetings noticing that staff feel more involved. It provides some structure, getting some great ideas, still early days, becoming more confident in using it. So remember the unwanted stuff that shows up, don't let it hold you back. Lean into that unwanted stuff and do those things that are going to bring you satisfaction, because you're getting more confident using it. So well done, Maeve and Anne-Marie. The emotional intelligence assessments, they measure how we respond, our perception of how we respond to our emotions in 15 different areas. I do offer wellbeing coaching, so I support individuals who may be experiencing stress, may not want to see a counsellor because, again, they may feel that there's some stigma attached to that. So we make headway in terms of wellbeing using the ACT matrix. Behavioural assessments. I also conduct employee engagement surveys. So again, another thing we can do together is to respond to that, to find out where some of the problems and issues might be, helping teams to develop psychological safety by showing them how to use the 2 loops, and also psychological flexibility webinars, even in-house for organisations. Those of you that are joining me today for the first time, I run these webinars on a monthly basis. The fact that you have signed up here today means you will by signing up, you will automatically now be on my distribution list. And so you will receive the emails on a monthly basis. Those emails, I try to be as informative as possible, giving you the wellbeing awareness days that are coming up, what the webinar might be for that month. And this month I shared some resources in terms of the menopause and menopause support in work. So I hope you find that useful. Also, those of you that are joining me for the first time, if you check out my website and go to the resources section, you'll be able to watch the recordings of the webinars. All of my webinars on Crowdcast are recorded and available on demand, so you can watch this one afterwards using the link that you have. Please feel free to follow me both on Crowdcast today. So you'll see at the top of your screen, there is a button for follow. That means that you will be notified of the other webinars that I run. It just happens 10 minutes before I'm about to run those. Or feel free to follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn to be kept up to date with some hopefully inspirational ideas and thoughts. I've run over time by 2 minutes, so apologies for that. Thank you for joining me today, taking the time out to join me. I would love to hear how you find this session, so please feel free to leave any feedback in the chat box. I appreciate you've all taken time out of your day to come and join me. It needs to be worthwhile. So I can use that feedback for future webinars. As always, it's wonderful to see some of you coming back. Sharon, great to see you back, and I hope you're doing well. Thank you, Roisin. Look forward to future webinars. Thank you, Lorraine. And the last thing I have to say is stay well. Just remember, if you can find the opportunity to notice who's important, to notice the unwanted stuff that might be showing up for you, to notice how you might respond to it, how you want to get relief from it, and to notice what might bring you satisfaction, what you would do in the external world. Anne-Marie and Maeve, thank you for joining me also. Take care, stay well. Look forward to seeing you next month.